Good morning, everyone. I'm super happy to be here. I was looking forward to spending some time with my church this morning. I will start with my usual. I am not a preacher. I am not a pastor. I am not an evangelist. I am one of you. Trying to figure my life out, and I make mistakes along the way. I am deeply flawed, and I'm not worthy of being up here talking to you. But Brother Marty asked me to do it. So I'm a soldier, and I will comply, because that's what God wants me to do. My only wish every time I come here and I stand in front of you is that God uses me to deliver His message, not mine. His is the glory, not mine. And whatever I choose to share with you, if you can get one thing out of it, my job is done. Before I start with this, I ask you to pray. Not now, but when you're praying, for me and my family. And the reason why I say this year has been an interesting year. When I was out there not believing and trying to convert people into not believing in God, because I was a violent atheist for a very long time, life was easier. Life was so much easier. Life is easier when you don't care. Life is easier when you don't think about the consequences. Life is easier when you are not putting yourself in a position in which you want to become a better version of yourself every single day. It seems like ever since I started coming to church, that things have gotten more difficult. It's easy to love God when everything is going right. It's not so easy to love Him deeply when things get tough. So, it's been an interesting year. It's been a very, very interesting year. So, on that basis, I wanted to talk to you about, I created a two-part sermon. Hopefully in the next few weeks, Brother Marty would ask me to come back if I don't mess it up too badly this morning, and finish with the second part. But, for those of you that have ever gone to the gym or have ever lifted any weights of any sort, the process of building muscle is an interesting one, because this is what happens. Your body picks something up that is not the usual load. It's not something that your body recognizes. Even a phone is a heavier load. You can feel the weight. You can feel gravity. So, depending on the size of the weight, you lift it. Let's say that you are lifted and trying to build your arms and your biceps. Your body does it once, if you can lift it. And then your brain sends signals to your circulatory system, in which you start sending more blood to the area, because there is a load that is not usually recognized. You do it often enough, not only more blood is sent to this area, they call it the pump when you lift weights, but now your body starts sending other things like lactic acid. Lactic acid gets in between the blood and the arteries, and it starts expanding your muscle tissue. You do that often enough, you break your muscle tissue. That's why when you lift weights and you haven't done it for a long time, it hurts. It hurts the day after, 2 days, 3 days after. In the gym lingo, they call that the DOMS, the delayed onset muscle soreness. But if you keep at it, you break it apart, and the body builds it back up stronger. You break it, and it breaks it up back stronger. You are intentionally making your muscles uncomfortable in order for them to grow. I want you to think about that for a second. The title of my message this morning is called Comfort is the New Golden Calf. Comfort is the new golden calf. For reference, Exodus 32:1, Luke 9:23, and Romans 12:1. You don't have to look it up. We'll just discuss it this morning. Here is a question that I have for you. Have you noticed that we are getting softer as people? Not physically. That's not what I'm talking about. Not physically. I'm talking in general. Now, if you were to look by the number of ads that you see on TV that are trying to sell you orthopedic mattresses, you think that everybody's trying to survive medieval torture, because that's all they sell you on TV these days. But, today is all about comfort. We have heated steering wheels, we have heated seats, cooling seats. That's the one feature I never knew I always needed. Just put air conditioning on my seat. It's amazing. You have heated wheels, steering wheels, heated mirrors. Now you can even buy a heated windshield. I don't know if you know about this. No. Range Rover will sell you a car that has electric coils in the glass. So in the wintertime, when you drive around, you don't have to have snow or ice because it's all so comfortable. At this rate, by the year 2030, your car is going to tuck you in and read you Psalms before you can go to sleep. Do you remember back in the day when, before remote controls, and your parents asked you to go and change the channel? You had to get up and click the knob, because it was a knob back then, and click, 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 and there was only like 3 channels. And back in Chile, we had channel 13, channel 9, channel 5. And there was a channel 3 that belonged to the dictatorship. And, Pinochet used to talk to us every Monday night, giving us all the good news of the dictatorship. So we used to walk around and turn the knob. That's what we did. We got up. So if you're under 30 right now, you're probably thinking that I'm describing some farm equipment, but that's not what it was. It was us just changing the channel. We had to get up and do something. Today, if we can't find the remote control, we go crazy. We literally go crazy. We spend 20 minutes sticking our hands between the cushions of that couch, trying to find the thing when all we need to do, because TVs today still have a channel changer on the side. We're too lazy. We will lay down on the couch and look underneath it, just so we are comfortable while we look. You know what's worse? Amazon. I ordered some, because my wife and I are going on vacation in a few weeks. I ordered some bathing suits because, I've been fortunate enough to lose a ton of weight over the last little bit, so nothing fits. So I ordered them 2 days ago, and now I'm panicking that they're not here. It's only been 48 hours. And I'm thinking, what is wrong with me? I'm going to go customer service and spend hours with them asking them where my bathing suits are. Why? The people of Israel wandered for 40 years looking for the right place. 40 years. And we can't even wait a few minutes. Don't even get me started with drive-thrus. If you pull up to a drive-thru and there are more than 4 cars, you will throw a mental tantrum. You go to Tim Hortons and the lineup, especially this one down here. It's got like 5 or 6 cars. We all go in there. The lineup goes all the way almost to Trafalgar. It's like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to wait. I go home, unsatisfied and unhappy that the lineup was too long. You see how comfortable we've become. We complain about 5 minutes while carrying in our pocket a supercomputer that has more computing capacity than the mission to the moon in 1969. Did you know that the average iPhone today has more memory capacity and computer capacity than the ship that went to the moon? We have almost all the knowledge of the world. Not the wisdom of the world, but we have almost all the knowledge of the world in this phone. So we're not short of blessings. We have all the comfort. What we're short on is patience. We have lost our ability to delay gratification and wait. We don't wait anymore. We're too good to wait. And that's very dangerous. And the reason why that's dangerous is because comfort has become our new master. Comfort is what drives just about every decision that modern society has put in front of you. You know, what I ask of God is the following. You know, if there is anything in our lives that is quietly taking His place, I want God to help me expose it today. Because I don't want you to leave here merely entertained. That's not what I want every time I come and talk to you. I just want you to leave here thinking. Thinking about the things that, you know, God has placed in my heart for me to talk to you about. So, if you can recognize one thing that makes you so comfortable, that has taken the place of the Lord inside your heart, this is the time to call that out. On Exodus 32, this is one of the strangest stories in the Bible. For real. This is bizarre. You know, my friend Jay here hasn't read the Bible, so he was not raised Christian. So this is not a common story for people that are not Christian. So I'm going to recite you a couple of succession of events here. You know, God parts the Red Sea. God destroys the Pharaoh's army. God feeds the people of Israel. He leads them with fire. He leads them with a cloud. He performs miracle after miracle after miracle. And guess what happens 40 days later? They're worshiping a cow. That's what they're doing. They're worshiping a golden calf. Here's the embarrassing part. You know, if you're going to replace God with a figure that you are going to idolize, why a cow? You pick a lion or something, you know, an eagle or a dragon or something that actually meant something, but a cow. And you think, has God abandoned me? Or is it that I'm not following God's timeline? Have you thought that maybe you are not in control of anything? That God is the one that is holding the steering wheel and He will make it happen whenever He is ready, not you? I read a quote this week that said, I asked God for flowers and He gave me rain. Here is where we miss the point. The story is not about cows. The story is about comfort. That's where the story lies. Most people think that Israel abandoned God, but that's not actually what happened. Notice that Aaron says, this is the God that brought you out of Egypt. They mixed worship of God with something they could control, and that's usually what idols do. They don't necessarily replace God. They reshape Him into something that is familiar to you. They reshape it into something that makes you more comfortable. And that in itself should make everyone here uncomfortable. The first mistake. When people saw Moses delayed, stop, everything starts here. He was delayed. Moses was not dead. Moses was not gone. Moses was having a conversation with God, trying to figure things out. But people didn't have the patience to wait. They didn't know that God had his own timetable. Waiting became so uncomfortable that drove them away from their own guide. And uncomfortable people make foolish decisions. When you're uncomfortable and under pressure, you will make bad decisions. You know, in the car business, we always tell people the best time to buy a car is when you don't need one. Why? Because you're not under pressure. You don't need to rush. Now you can take your time. Now you can go shop around. Because when you're under pressure is when you make decisions. How many bad decisions have you made because you got tired of waiting? You know, waiting to get married, waiting for a promotion, waiting to be healed. And like I did. And it drove me away from God for 30 years. I was asking for a career, I was asking for a beautiful wife and beautiful kids and a nice car and nice clothes and all those things. And it wasn't coming. And I said, this doesn't work. My prayers are not being answered, so what am I doing? I'm wasting my time. This is all nonsense. That's what I felt in my heart. And it drove me away from God. And I've shared with you my testimony here. One day I woke up and I realized that I had a career and a wife and beautiful children. My wife was also beautiful. I was asking for the wrong thing. I should have been praying for patience. So comfort got the best of me and it drove me away from my goal, from my purpose, from my legend. The legend is what am I supposed to be doing with my life? They say that every man has two lives. One trying to figure out what your purpose is. And the second half is once you find it, just to give it away. Give it away. Waiting for your children to come back to God, waiting for God to answer prayers. Sometimes we don't stop trusting. God hasn't failed us. He's just watching. He's watching what you do and what happens to your faith when things go south. You know, at the beginning of my talk this morning, I said to you that this has been a rough year. I have it on my wall in my office, and these guys that work with me can tell you. When David asked God for a kingdom, God did not give him a crown. He gave him Goliath. He gave him Goliath. But we refuse to wait on God. We usually settle for something that is below him, is beneath him. Something that is not worthy of the adoration that God sets us out to do on a day-to-day basis. The problem wasn't the calf. Think about this. They had just left Egypt. Egypt had gods for everything. That's what a polytheist culture would give you. A polytheist ideology would give you. They had a god for the Nile. They had a god for the sun. They had Ra, I think was his name. They had a god for the constellation, Osiris. They had a god for the earth, for the moon. They had a god for cats were gods. You've seen the god cats from Egypt, have you not? They spent 400 years, Israelites spent 400 years watching Egyptians worship things. So they became a way of living. That's all they saw. And we as Christians, we get exposed to the world today and we see people that don't believe in God worshiping rappers, celebrities, people that are famous simply because they're famous. There's no reason why they're famous. Like the Kardashians, for example. They're just famous for being famous. They've done nothing remarkable. They've done nothing important. But we have confused fame with importance. We have confused stardom with relevance. And that's not the way that works. So these people have watched Egyptians worship things for 400 years. So when things got tough and Moses disappeared, they panicked. What if he doesn't come back? What if the God of Moses is not real? So guess what they did? They returned to something that was familiar to them. Because comfort always disguises itself as familiarity. And you know, I'll tell you something. Some of us that grew up in chaos, you know, some of us have really tough upbringings. When home wasn't safe, right? You wanted to get out of the house. You didn't want to be at home because it was dangerous. So now when you are home as an adult and it feels peaceful, you think, what's happening? This is dangerous. So why did I create my own danger? So now I can go back to the chaos that is familiar to me. And I see people sabotaging their own lives all the time simply because they have failed to address the original issues. We always go back to what is familiar, regardless of whether it's good or bad for you. You know that whole notion of old habits reappear? That's what usually happens when you panic. I just want things the way they used to be, is what people say. Sometimes that is wisdom, but sometimes that is also idolatry. We build golden calves all the time, except that our calves don't move. Nobody carved a golden cow this week. At least I hope not. I hope none of you guys carved a golden cow this week. If you did, we need to send you off for counseling. Our idols look a little different right now. Success is one of them. I was a victim of that. I was a wrecking ball for 30 years, trying to accomplish something, trying to move away from a past, trying to become something that I never knew I had. When you grow up without feeling relevant or seen or cared for, all you want is significance. And how do you achieve significance? Through success. If people see me as famous, if people see me as powerful, if people see me as rich, then maybe people will love me. Maybe people will care. But that's not the way that works. Because you cannot follow money or success for the sake of money and success. Success and money and financial security is a side effect of a job well done. If you do something amazing, if you do something remarkable, people will find you to come and work for them. They will find you to give you money. Say, please take my money. Because you become so good at something. I missed the point. Success was my idol. And I lost so many good people in the process because I could not see anything other than I need to achieve that goal no matter what. Niccolo Machiavelli said, the end justifies the means. And that I did. Money is a big idol these days. That's a big golden calf for real. Some people will sacrifice relationships, marriages, children, just because they want another dollar. Politics is another one. Whew. Have you ever tried to have a conversation with somebody from an opposite political view? You're not talking with anyone. You're talking at each other, not with each other. No mind is being changed. But we don't entertain the possibility that maybe the other side is right. We never do. Approval is another one. We want to be liked at whatever cost. Sports. You know how many people sit watching TV on Sundays for 3, 4, 5, 6 hours every Sunday? And we are stuck there watching sports teams do their thing. And then we have a tough time coming to church on Sunday morning. For some people, it's their children. They become the idol. They can't do no wrong. We can't say no to them because that would hurt the little feelings. It's scary. Even church traditions sometimes fall into this category. Anything that becomes untouchable can become an idol. Anything that you can't surrender probably owns you. If you can't give it up, guess what? It owns you. Is it food? Is it cigarettes? Is it alcohol? It owns you. Let that sink in. That's your new golden calf. Here is a dangerous one. And this is the topic of the meeting this morning, or this conversation, is comfort. Not because comfort is evil. Because God gives us rest. God invented the Sabbath. Jesus slept in boats. And I know that some of you are thinking, finally, we have a message here that supports naps. You know, when you were little and your parents used to send you for a nap, you would fight it all the time, and now you wish that you had a nap. Actually, my friend Jay, he has naps every Sunday afternoon. On my wrong, Jay? God gives us rest. But Satan offers comfort that keeps us from obedience. So, there is a difference. One restores your soul. The other one puts your soul to sleep. You don't want your soul to go to sleep. Nobody wakes up saying, today, I'll worship comfort. People don't say those things. Instead, I'll forgive them eventually. I'll volunteer at some point in my life. I'll give money to the church when I have enough. I'll start going to church after the hockey season ends. I will share my faith, but just not to those people because maybe they don't want to hear that I'm a Christian. I don't want to share my faith because it's a little bit awkward, so I don't want people to know that I'm a Christian. When I make a little more money, can I tell you something? There is always another hockey season. There is always another bonus that you're going to wait for. There is always another excuse that you're going to have, and you're going to tell yourself as to why you cannot talk to other people about Christianity. There is always another excuse. Comfort doesn't usually say no. Comfort says later. Later. Mañana. Mañana, that's the disease. And later, once, is one of Satan's favorite words. Later is one of Satan's favorite words. Because it takes you away from the present to an improbable future in which he knows you're not going to do anything about it. Because outside of your mind, you will, if you don't do it now, you will forget. Raise your hand if you've ever hit the snooze button. Please. Keep it up. Keep it up if you hit it more than once. Now, keep it up if you've hit it enough time that your alarm clock essentially just gave up on you. Sometimes the alarm goes off. You put it under the pillow. If you put enough cushion in between, you don't hear it anymore. Here's the thing. Snoozing isn't just something that we do in bed. Sometimes we snooze God's message. Sometimes we snooze God's voice. Sometimes we snooze God's commandment. Sometimes we snooze our obligation as Christians to go out there and preach the word. Sometimes we snooze that we have to behave in a way that people know we're Christians without us even saying it. And that's hard. That is very hard. Delayed obedience is still disobedience. So in closing of the part 1 today, here is the question. I want you to think about this, for just a few seconds. If Satan can't make you stop believing in Jesus, what if he can simply make you too comfortable to follow Jesus wholeheartedly? You know, this morning I was teaching the jiu-jitsu class at our academy. And the message was, you know how much easier it would have been to stay in bed? Warm. Oh yeah, it's nice. Coffee. Nothing to be on. But instead, these guys choose to put themselves into uncomfortable situations to be a better version of themselves. If you don't do that on a regular basis, life will do it for you. Because the enemy doesn't always need to destroy your faith. He doesn't need to destroy it. He just needs to pat it. He just needs to put it on pause. And faith wrapped in enough comfort eventually makes you forget how to carry the cross. I want you to think about that for a second. Faith wrapped in enough comfort makes you forget that you still need to pick up that cross. So when you leave here today, this is all I want. Don't wait. I waited far too long to come to the realization that what God wanted me to do was to speak, to yell it from the rooftops. And I make mistakes every single day. But now they're conscious. Now I see it. Now I feel it. Now I have young eyes watching me. And I have an opportunity to rewrite what I'm doing. I don't have to fall prey to the old idols. I don't have to fall prey to my addictions. I don't have to fall prey to my old tendencies or desires. I don't have to fall prey to that anymore. I don't want to be comfortable. I want to make myself uncomfortable because there is a purpose for all of us here. When you leave today, you're not talking to people about how amazing Christ is. We are too comfortable. We are way too comfortable. Thank you so much for listening to me this morning. Thank you. Brother Marty?